All right, guys. So for those who don't know me, my name is Yannick Cudjoe-Virgil. I'm the principal of Merlin Acquisitions. We are a real estate private equity company primarily focused in the multifamily investing space. Our acquisitions are currently located in Baltimore, Maryland, and we do value add multifamily investing. I've been a GP on a couple of deals, and we're looking to expand in the Maryland region. And if you go to our website here, it talks a little bit about us, our background, um, our experience in the commercial real estate space. We do have a couple of resources here. If you go to our website, merlinacquisitions.com, where there are blogs, we do have a free due diligence checklist, passive guide for syndication for any passive investors. And we also have a questionnaire on our website that you can fill out if you're a passive investor looking for real estate opportunities by experienced investors on the GP side. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started on the topic of raising capital, right? And capital raising is one of the things where it is a task that, you know, some people struggle with, right? And some people get it faster than others, right? When we raised our first million, that was something that was something that I thought that I would never do, right? You get into real estate and you kind of have these uh, smaller goals of maybe getting into fixing and flipping, and then you want to, work your way up. Or if you get into multifamily straight ahead and you skip that quote unquote fixing and flipping timeline, right? It's something that I never thought that I'd be able to do, but I think, as you build track record and credibility in this space, you'd be able to do that too. So raising capital for real estate deals, right? We're going to talk about it, talk about some strategies behind it, talk about things that have worked for us on our end as well. Spend about 20 minutes talking about it, and happy to talk about it in depth on a Q&A for another 10 minutes after that, right? So, all right, the truth is, so if you were jumping on today to find some sort of like secret behind capital raising, the truth is that there's really no secret to capital raising, right? And I'm going to talk about why that is and why I think that is, and what you need to do to really raise capital for real estate deals, right? Sometimes you might hear some gurus come out and say, well, there's a secret to raising capital, or download this and you find a secret to raising capital. There's really no secret to raising capital. We're going to talk about why that is shortly, right? The question that you really need to ask is, how can I get access to capital? So that's two different things, right? Thinking that there's a secret to raising capital is one thing, which is not true. There's no secret, but you really need to change your thinking process of, like, how can I get access to capital, right? And so I really thought about, like, what is the definition of capital raising? If you really think about it, if I want to raise capital, like, what does that mean, raising capital, right? And so I came up with this definition that capital raising is simply the mixture of networking and marketing strategies that positions you to have the ability to raise capital, right? And I think that is a very applicable definition of raising capital. It's a mixture of networking and marketing strategies that positions you to have the ability to raise capital. And we've heard it all the time. Your net worth is your network is your net worth, right? And you may have heard, to get people to invest with you, they have to like, know, and trust you, right? But the first thing that they have to do is they have to know who you are. And so if you aren't networked well, or if people don't know who you are, you can't be in a position to have the ability to raise capital. Does that make sense? And so that's why I came up with that definition of capital raising. So why is capital raising crucial to your real estate success, right? Why is capital raising crucial to your real estate success? Well, the reason is that there are three pillars to real estate, right? It's either you have the deal or the opportunity, the experience, to do the deal or the money, which is the most important and lucrative skill set, right? Either you have the deal and the opportunity, the experience to do the deal, or the money. And a lot of times people might fall into the first one, the second one, but the third one, the money part, is the most challenging part for most entrepreneurs, right? I think they say like 70% of businesses fail because they're undercapitalized, right? And real estate is no different. We might have different lending sources, but you really need the equity to scale up. And so I truly believe that capital raising is the most important and lucrative skill that you really need to master if you want to scale up in the world of real estate. So let's break it down, right? I talked about the definition of capital raising is the mixture of networking and marketing strategies that positions you to have the ability to raise capital, right? So let's start with the networking aspect to it. When you're networking, your goal is to expand your network, right? But how do you expand it in a way uh, that is directly going to point you in a way to get to the goal that you're trying to get to, right? Networking with anyone is one thing, but networking in a way that is strategic, in a way that allows you to scale your capital raising, is another thing. So when I think about networking and expanding my network, right, I'm thinking about attending events where your ideal investor would attend. So what is your avatar, right? My avatar, our company's avatar is professional athletes, because I'm a former professional athlete, business owners, and high income W-2 professionals, right? That is our avatar, our ideal investor, or our investor base, right? And so we want to attend events where those folks are going to be hanging out, right? I want to focus on events where those folks are going to be hanging out. And so what that means is that I cannot focus on events where other real estate investors are going to hang out, because if I'm going to a real estate event where other real estate investors are going to be, there's a high chance that those same folks are looking for the same thing that I'm looking for. So really, there's no point in me spending my time to go to a lot of these networking events that some of these I don't want to say gurus, but some of the thought leaders in the real estate space have, right? And there's nothing against them personally, but if your goal is to really scale your capital raising, you need to be surrounded by your target audience. Like, you need to be really strategic about that. And so how do you do that? Right? Well, for us, it's monthly meetups and maybe Eventbrites or different events that our ideal investor is going to be at, right? So it might be events, we might Google, nonprofits near me, right? And we try to find nonprofits where, that have some sort of mission that we're aligned to, right? Because we don't want to be disingenuous about building relationships. We want to build true relationships, but we want to do it with like-minded people, right? And so every month, a strategy can be figuring out, what are the meetups that my ideal target audience are going to be in, right? It could be tech. It can be, maybe where attorneys hang out. It could be nonprofits that I mentioned, right? And these events, happen on a monthly basis, sometimes an annual basis, but you really need to figure out what are the events that these folks are attending, and I need to be in the room, because I need to position myself as the thought leader in that room. I don't want to be a thought leader in a room full of other thought leaders in real estate, right? I want to make sure that my networking is targeted in a way that I'm attracting the person that I want to invest with me. And I gave an example, right? A nonprofit organization. I think that's probably one of the easiest ways to network around people who potentially have the capital, right? If you're in a nonprofit organization and you're maybe on the board and you're donating, a lot of times, those folks might have, heavy or deep pockets, right? And so again, this is not an opportunity to be disingenuous or anything like that. It's an opportunity to be around like-minded professionals, but then potentially also be aligned with whatever mission the nonprofit has, right? So when we talk about networking, that's something that you should really focus on, but with people that are in your target audience, right? And so we talked about the networking aspect. Let's talk about the marketing aspect. And the goal from the marketing aspect is, how can I establish credibility in the space that I'm playing in? right? That is my goal on the marketing side, is how can I cut through the noise of everyone else potentially giving the same message, but in a way that attracts the person that I'm trying to attract, right? And so how do we do that? And so the first thing we want to focus on is really attracting that audience, right? And so the simple thing is, how can I create content that attracts that audience from a marketing perspective? And now we have things like AI, like Chat GPT, that's been buzzing around the internet right now. We have AI platforms that allow you to brainstorm content and do things at scale. I mean, we live in an age where you literally can type in an idea and there's a bot that's going to spit it out for you and help you. I mean, our content, just because we use AI like Chat GPT or like Jasper AI to create blogs, that's cutting down my time to create, or our time to create content, by 50%. So that allows me to spend time on other things that add value to the business, right? And so you want to make sure that you have those systems set up in a way that you can post or post that content on maybe like a co-schedule or a Loomly in advance, right? Because your goal is to attract and create content for your audience, but you also want to focus on real estate activities, depending on what you're doing in your business. And when you're creating that content, you want to make sure that you're matching your social media strategy with your ideal investor, right? So if I'm talking to professional athletes, the thing is, the professional athletes, they like flashy stuff, right? They like nice cars. They like to talk about money. So if I'm targeting a message to professional athletes, it has to be catered in a way that captivates that audience. If I'm talking to someone that's in the W-2 world, I know that maybe 30% of their income is going to taxes, right? So our message might be catered in a way that maybe cost segregation can allow them to decrease their tax liability. And so if they invest with me, now they have more opportunities to reduce that tax liability and create cash flow and other streams that allows them to grow their wealth over time. So, I said it at the top, there's no secret to capital raising, right? But it is a mixture of networking and marketing strategies that positions you to have the ability to raise capital. When you're attracting your audience, you want to obviously make sure that you're adding value to attract your audience, right? And when you're adding value, you're creating something, or maybe some sort of collateral that allows you to capture, potential leads or potential investors into your pipeline, right? So, that might be, like an ebook, for example, right? You want to capture that, when someone clicks on your website, goes download your ebook, they're uploading their email, and now they're in your funnel to be given more and more educational content for them to potentially be an investor with you if they know, like, and trust you, right? They first got an opportunity to know you. Now they have to trust you through consistent content. And then obviously, your hopes is that you're a good fit for them, and they invest with you in the future. But you have to definitely build that database that allows you to capture those potential investors, nurture them, and turn them into raving fans to invest with you. So I touched a little bit about educating your audience, right? And that comes with producing consistent content to continuously educate your audience, right? And you want to make sure that you're setting this up on the front end by using those systems, or having maybe a weekly schedule in your calendar to do content, right? Once a week. I mentioned AI platforms like ChatGPT, etc. There are things out there now that allow you to cut down on content production and being in front of someone, right? Because remember, there's a ton of noise in the real estate space online, and you have to figure out, how can I cut through the noise and deliver my message in a quick, efficient manner that captures that audience to come into my pipeline for potential investors. And then how you do that is leveraging email marketing like a MailChimp or Active Campaign that allows you to stay top of mind. See, the thing is that this is no different from a regular sales process, right? If you go to, I don't know, like a target.com, right? You click on, you're clicking on stuff, and you're adding stuff to your cart, and you type in your email address, and you're now in Target's loop for email marketing, right? They're staying top of mind for you to make more and more purchases. And so it's the same thing when you think about it from a real estate perspective, is that you want to have those systems in the back end, or those back office systems, to capture those leads, nurture them, and hopefully that you guys build a connection and they become potential investors, right? So the other stuff, we talked about the networking, we talked about the marketing, but when you get in contact with investors, the key thing is you want to make sure that your investors are deal ready. And the reason is that, although the real estate market has, in some sectors, quote unquote, slowed down a little bit as we speak in, February 22nd, 2023, right? You want to make sure that your investors are always deal ready, right? They always have to be deal ready, in a sense that they're able to make a quick decision, because real estate moves fast, right? And so how you do that is just by creating a simple sample deal package. Maybe you're going on in the commercial real estate space on LoopNet, right? You download something that you've underwritten, or you've underwritten something in the past, and you're creating a package that you can present to your potential investors, right? When they say that they're interested in looking at a deal, or looking at a deal that might work for them, right? And your goal is to present it to your network of investors to figure out, would they or would they not be interested in this particular deal? But the next question that you really, really, really absolutely want to ask is that you want to ask them, if I presented a deal like this to you, is this an opportunity that you'd be interested in investing in? And that's super, super, super important. And I'm going to tell you why that's important. The reason that that's important is because you want to make sure that you have a total amount of investors that you are comfortable with, to know what types of properties you can offer on. Or if you are participating in the investor relations with another larger syndicator, you want to make sure that you have an idea of what you can raise for a particular project. Because when you have a deal under contract, specifically a larger deal that requires a larger earnest money deposit, you want to go to these investors first, because you know that their capital is lined up. The better they're in a position to prime your capital to move quickly, the more success you're going to have with your transaction, right? And a lot of people, they might have, they might feel like it's salesy. They might feel like, oh, I don't want to press too hard. But the reality is that you're bringing someone an opportunity that they would not be able to invest in if they otherwise did not know you. And so real estate is a unique investment opportunity that allows cash flow, and also allows tax benefits. And so whenever I'm talking to an investor, and this is in the most humblest way possible, I know that I'm providing some sort of value, because I'm bringing them an opportunity to park their money in a stable asset that produces cash flow and tax benefits. And so never be ashamed to ask your investor if they would be interested in investing a deal that looks like what your sample deal package is. And then also maybe how much are they willing to invest? And then how soon are they willing to invest as well? Because the more you know about your investor base, the quicker you're able to move on deals. Okay. All right. So we talked about that, right? But what I really wanted to talk about, here's the real secret when it comes to capital raising, right? I know I mentioned that there was no secret in the front end, but here's the real secret to capital raising. The first one is you have to be a closer. You have to be the person that is closing deals, or is associated with someone who has closed deals in the past. Because it's easy to go out there and market to someone. And I know that imposter syndrome is real, because when I first started in the space, I felt like I had imposter syndrome, even though I was fully qualified to do deals and I've never done a deal before. It's like saying in sport, winning solves everything, right? So if you're able to close deals and you're able to prove that you're winning in the world of real estate, it's an easier sell to someone. However, you can still mitigate that by aligning with other people who have closed deals and leverage their track record to raise capital. The second thing is showing up consistently. Part of creating a brand part of creating a relationship is being able to deliver the same product over and over and over and over again. And part of that is just showing up consistently. And that's probably the hardest part, because as a busy real estate investor, you're busy doing a whole bunch of different things, right? But if you can set up your systems, your capital raising systems in a way, from a creating content perspective, your back office email marketing perspective, in a way that you're showing up consistently. So on a week in, week out basis, there's some way that this person is going to be touching you, whether it's, a podcast, or whether there's, Facebook, or whether there's email marketing. There's some way that you can stay in front of someone. It's a better way to create that create that credibility and staying top of mind, so that when someone is ready, you are the person that they want to invest with. And then the last thing is that, when it comes to any sort of marketing or anything of that nature, the money is in the follow-up. And, the follow-up in this business, and, it's my belief that it's in the calls and the emails. So if an investor says, call me back in 3 months, and, we'll talk about, how much I'm willing to invest, whenever I've, took some money out my 401k, or whatever the case may be, or I sold one of my investments. Or it can be following up on emails when someone comes into your system, or your active campaign, or your MailChimp, putting them in a 52-week email campaign that educates them on the same topic that you presented a deal to them on. That allows you to, again, stay in front of those investors and be in front of them when they're ready to invest in a deal, right? Because the money is in the follow-up, in sales, in real estate included as well. You have to be able to stay in front of people, stay top of mind, and you do that through calls and emails, right? And so that is really the soup to nuts version of like how to raise capital in this world today. And it might seem like this was, maybe simple, or there were some things that, that you might found to be super, super valuable. But I think the last section here, where it says closing deals, showing up consistently, and focusing on follow-ups, that is really the key, or the secret to raising capital. In addition to what I mentioned beforehand, right? You have to show that you are a closer. You have to show that you're credible. You have to show that you're with someone that's credible. You have to show up consistently within your message, right? If you're marketing, if you're networking, people have to know you for what you do. And then you have to follow up with people, because some people are going to be ready at different times. Some people are going to be ready to invest. Like, for example, last week I did a meetup on underwriting, and apparently I did so well that someone came up to me. I've never met this person before, and say, "Hey, I'm willing to invest with you. You seem to know what you're talking about. I'm willing to invest with you." And so we had a call a few days later, right? Little things like that, showing that you're the authority, or showing your credibility and your expertise in this business, goes a long, long way. So happy to have a short, 5 to 10 minutes on any follow-up questions regarding anything that I talked about today. I'm going to open it up to allow some folks to ask any questions or talk about anything. But thanks again for joining in for today's webinar. Any questions out there? All right, guys. Well, I hope that this was helpful. Again, there's no secret to raising capital, but if you follow these steps that I mentioned today, I'm very, very sure that you would be in a position to raise capital, close your first deal, and consistently raise more and more capital for real estate. So thanks again for you guys for jumping in to today's webinar. Looks like we have one late question here by Gabriel. Gabriel, feel free to unmute.
Yes, let me see. I think I'm on. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yep.
Yes. Hi, Yannick. Thanks again for putting this together. This was very informative, actually. I think my question is just around, and I had a couple of issues with your with the hearing you in the beginning. So I don't know if you said this. In terms of your deal raising, is there a particular structure that you do from an entity perspective when you raise funds for these deals? You know, to separate investor capital, is there a particular legal structure you would
Yeah,
suggest
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
recommend?
Yeah, definitely. So I'll share our own legal structure, and I'm by no means any legal expertise here. I'm just giving advice, not advice, but I'm giving experience on what we've done in the past. So basically, we syndicate opportunities, right? So what that basically means is that we are the operators on a project, and so the profits within the project is solely based off of our performance, right? And so because of that, when we're raising capital, we have to do what's called a syndication, right? And so what we essentially do is that we have a company that owns the property, right? So you have 123 Main Street LLC that owns the property, and then you have two separate LLCs that's inside of that LLC. One LLC that's the LP ownership, that is everyone who injected capital into the project, including ourselves, right? So all of the limited partners are everyone who contributed capital to the project. On the other side is another LLC that excuse me, has a percentage ownership in the property as well, and that is called the general partners, right? And that is essentially everyone that's in the general partnership that is doing some sort of muscle work or heavy work to contribute to the future projections or the future returns of the project. And so that structure is a typical structure in the syndication world. In terms of a joint venture world, again, you know, you probably want to speak with your real estate attorney. But if you're raising capital, the main difference between a joint venture and a syndication is that in a joint venture, everyone has to be active within the project, right? Because now you are going on the fine line of something called a Howey test. And the difference between the joint venture and the syndication within the Howey test is based off of if one person or one group, if their actions are specifically leading to the profits of the entire venture, and everyone else is passive within the investment, right? So definitely talk to your real estate attorney. They'll be the one to advise better on which structure that you should select for your particular capital raise. Did that help?
That was very helpful. Thank you so much.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for tuning in to another webinar. Again, we have a YouTube channel. We're doing these webinars every 2 weeks at this time right now. So definitely would love to connect in the future, and looking forward to seeing you guys on the next webinar.